friend, Eli Brodsky. How you doing, Eli?
Hey, how's it going, Jake?
Was I not supposed to give your last name?
Prefer not to, but
I'm sorry.
You already did.
Well,
it's okay.
We'll edit it out. That doesn't
we'll
really
edit
matter.
it out.
You're a nobody. I mean, you're a big nobody in the grand scheme of things, right?
Yeah, but why do they need to know?
Yeah, that's true.
I mean?
I apologize.
It's all right. You didn't know, Jake Pentland.
Anywho's, we're glad to be back. It's been a long week. I know I sound a little down. I'm exhausted. On Thursday, LA Food Show closed, Eli. It's our favorite restaurant.
In the Manhattan area?
Yeah, that one closed too. And This is a restaurant, for my listeners that don't know, I'm not always just this kind of way on the radio. I'm like this in my real life, where I'm constantly trying to get to the deep psychological understandings of people, as well as my friends. We're all like that. So when we go to lunch, me and my pals, it isn't like, hey, let's talk football. We're talking about, child abuse and biases and things that we need to overcome in our lives. It's actually profound conversations. It's weird, but that's what we like to do in our own time. Of course, we like to lubricate it with alcohol, and we find the old statement, which is in vino veritas, which means in wine, in truth. If you're going to confront somebody about it, something they don't want to talk about, we find the mix of the Cadillac margarita at LA Food Show, along with their cornbread and jalapeno cornbread, is the perfect, scenario. That's what you need to get in somebody before they start talking about, whether they were beaten or molested or their father left them or whatever kind of stuff. Anyway, we get in these conversations, we cry, we laugh, we drink, and they've changed all our lives. It's a weird thing. I wish I had videotape on these moments. But anyway, long story short, we went there last week and we heard the bad news that restaurant was going out of business. Today, the LA Food Show in Manhattan Beach is the last day it will be open. So on Thursday, to sort of have a send-off, we went there after work hours and decided to have one last go at it. And we got shithoused. I mean, just disgustingly shithoused. One of the guys, I won't say his name, but he's a really normal guy. He's got a kid. He's a friend of mine, probably the most normal of all of us. But once the cornbread and jalapeno and the Cadillac margarita kicked in, he was talking about it. We had the sexual fantasy of spanking dwarfs. And he wasn't kidding. And male dwarfs.
Were they female or male?
No, they were female. So he came out of the closet a little bit. There's a little gay vibe, but only with dwarfs. It was, and I'm not making this up. It was not a joke. This really came up with a friend. These are the kind of conversations we had. So anyway, we all got shithoused, and then we decided that would be a perfect night to do martial arts training. So we got back about 7 and worked out for 3 hours. And my friend who's into spanking dwarfs actually vomited in a garbage can at one point and continued.
At least it was in a proper receptacle.
It was, and he was nice enough to get outside so we could work, without the smell. But anyway, that's why even now it's Saturday. This was Thursday night. Yesterday was just in a daze. So today I'm still recovering from the combination of alcohol.
How much did you have to drink?
I think I had about 4 double margaritas. It's about 8 margaritas in a 2-hour period. And, then the workout was brutal. I mean, I can barely walk. It was a brutal workout. So today I apologize. I do have a lot I want to get to. I think it's going to be our best show ever. I really do. I wish my energy level were a little higher, but it was a rough week. So with that said, you did ask me a question before we went on the air, and I want to let you ask me that on the air again.
About the Twitter, the Facebook page?
Yeah.
Okay. It wasn't a question. It was a response to your question, though.
Explain to me, because we're trying to get more people to listen to this show, and social networking, as you tell me, is a big part of that.
Of course.
I'm not very good at it.
Well, now that your Twitter, just to let you know, your Twitter page, if you want to submit a Twitter or tweeter, how do you say it?
Twat.
Singular. A twat?
A twat.
Okay, if you want to send a twat, that shows up on your Facebook page, you have to send it as just a general twat. You can't, cite anyone within the twat. This morning,
for instance, Brody said, "Hey, listen to Jake's show." I retweeted that, thinking that everyone would see the show was on. But then, according to Jeffrey, that did not go to my Facebook page because I did not write the word retweet. See, it's ridiculous.
Right.
Okay.
So retweets don't show up. If you cite anyone's account within your twat, it doesn't show up on their Facebook page. The only twat that shows up on the Facebook page is one that doesn't include any retweets, forwards, nor any citations of other people's twat accounts. So There you go.
Well, I did not know that, so I apologize. We do have a caller. I think it's my mother, according to the note. Jeffrey, is that my mother? I'm going to put her on. It's someone named Roseanne. I was not expecting this phone call. Is this mother?
Yes, it is your mother. Jake,
hey, what are you
need
doing?
to get off the radio. You and Butthead, Beavis and Butthead, and that idiot Eli, you guys need to stop doing radio. Seriously. You guys are disgusting and
Who's
stupid.
Butthead? Which one's Butthead?
I guess I'm Butthead.
No, she said you're the idiot.
He's
I'm
the
idiot.
I don't know who's who, but Eli, you could not be more stupid if you jumped off of a goddamn roof and landed on your head. Try it, and we'll see if that does make you even more stupid.
What are you?
Guys are
disgusting.
How gay are you guys? Like, seriously, just get together and come out of the closet with your loathing of female genitalia and all the crap you spew.
What are
Get
you
off
talking
the radio and marry each other, please.
You know, we thought about it at one point, but we simply are not homosexuals. There's no way around it.
There is no way that you guys are heterosexual with the way you loathe women, unless you're like stuck at an anal stage of being 3 years old and you're playing with each other's poop.
Did you listen to
both of you guys are
too
rich and too pampered.
I'm going to put her on mute.
You both need to get fired and get.
Look at that, a commuter. That's awesome.
See what real life is like, and I hope to help you do that. Eli, your father is a multi-billionaire, and you're a spoiled little drugged-up son of a bitch, and you better shut your fucking mouth. And, Jake, the same to you. What do you do all day? Not a goddamn thing. When was the last thing you did anything over there at that studio? Never.
Specifically,
you never do a goddamn thing but sit around and bitch about women's genitalia. You guys are disgusting and need to get off the radio. Jake, you're fired. Eli, I'm going to find your dad if he's...
Okay, I'm going to ask you, Mom. You're on mute now, so I'm going to ask you quick. Did you listen to our sales thing that we put on the Two Vagina Lady? Is that what this is about? Okay, now you're back on the air. Oh, wait, no, it's I'm getting the spin wheel of death. There you are. Is that what you listened to? Mother? She just hung up.
She's gone, Jake.
Oh, okay. Well, that was kind of cool. That was surprising. I think, Eli, I think she listened to the thing we did with the woman with two vaginas, because she obviously didn't listen to the show I did last week where I said I wasn't going to do the feminist issue since I already got thrown off the radio, and here we are on Unscripted. So I'm not going to go there. I do love to talk about it, as we all know. And I would have gladly have taken that phone call with my mother if she didn't hang up on me. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. The feminist thing is obviously too sensitive of an issue. I'm not going to lose any family over something so ridiculously unimportant in the grand scheme of things. I'm not even sure what she's upset about. We haven't even talked about it.
Either. Yeah.
That was weird. Did you tweet something to her?
No. I don't think so.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's all there is to it. So anyway, my twatting, you're telling me that I am not twatting appropriately. So here's what I want to say to anyone listening. Okay. I'm sorry. It's not that I don't care. I really, honestly, am new to the social networking thing. There are certain things I don't understand. I do love my followers. I do feel like I have a relationship with them. I do, talk to many of them that talk to me. I fight with a lot of them too. But I still haven't quite figured this thing out. So I'm hoping that our numbers do gain. I hope more and more people listen. I do think it's a good show. But you'll have to help me to remember that we're on Saturdays at 1, because sometimes I forget to tweet it. Which leads me to my real point. And this is what I want to get at. This is the problem I have with Twitter and Facebook. And I am a member of both. I am on both. And I do spend, a decent amount of time on both. So I'm not going to sit here and bash anyone that does it, because I do like it. I do see the value in it. But one of the problems I've always had, which is what I want to talk about today, is there's always sort of been, I would say, I've always been nervous about getting involved in Twitter and Facebook, because I find them to be very narcissistic. And for people that don't know what narcissism is, there's there's the famous whatever Roman god Narcissa, or I don't even know. I don't even know. But it's based off it, and it's a guy that looked at his image in a pond and fell so in love with himself that he never ever did anything else. And when I look at my generation and I look at the generations before me and my lovely mother, who you all just heard a few seconds ago, the baby boomer generation, I've seen a trend. I've talked about it on this show a lot, a troubling trend of this push towards narcissism to the point where now not only is everybody doing it, but it's the accepted norm. And it's frightening. And I know I talk about a lot of things people kind of brush by as if it doesn't really make sense or matter, but I found a couple studies, and I even went to the DSM book, which is a book that all therapists use to diagnose clinical disorders. And there is a disorder called narcissism personality disorder, NPD. And it blew my friggin' brains out. This is not just me bitching about Twitter and YouTube and this generation. This is a serious psychological condition. And the sad part, what I found, is that it's not just a few people suffering from it, it's all of us. We all have this condition. And what I did is I used the diagnostics in the, which is what the DSM stands for, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. I used this book, and in it, literally, America today, from the baby boomer generation to us, we all have it. This is not, cute or funny. This is legitimate. We are all suffering from narcissistic personality disorder, and it's not a good thing. And it's really what I want to talk about today, so I encourage anyone to call. The number is 323-417-6705. Earlier in the week when I did twat, I tweeted that I was going to do a show about how the baby boomers destroyed everything, and I think that might be another thing my mother's mad at. But I have sort of narrowed it down to that generation, which is what I think, and this is my theory, and I accept any call to argue against it. I kind of lost my train of thought. I got to be honest with you. I just saw a note about my mom. What was I saying?
Your theory on the baby boomers and our generation?
Yeah. Well, I think, our generation after the Industrial Revolution and, the 40s, the greatest generation, World War II, and, America used to be very strong. It was a strong country. It's all fallen to shit now. It's on its way down, let's say. It used to be a country about making things, about hard work, about a handshake, about a man's honor or a woman's word. There used to be not this push to screw people over for cash that was seen as dishonorable and looked down upon. And that slowly changed. And I think, in my theory, I wasn't alive then, is I think my mother's generation, the generations born in the 50s, the baby boomers, I think maybe they were brought up in that world, and at times it may have been a little too cold. Their parents basically never honoring their feelings, just telling them, hey, we just beat the Germans and the Japanese, and you need to get to work. And I think maybe over time they felt like they weren't being nurtured by their parents. And what they did is when they became teenagers and parents is they felt they could change the world by bringing a new generation of kids and so on that were nurtured and their feelings were honored. And again, I wasn't alive then, but that's my theory, and I do think it comes from a really beautiful place, which is you see the relationship with you have your parents, you feel a little cold and disconnected, and you want to make the world a better place, a more loving place. So when you have your own kid, you decide to treat them almost the opposite of it. And I think what happened was, while beautiful in theory, is these baby boomers raised a generation, and that generation has raised another generation of little shits. These little shits. It's not even their fault, but a whole generation from baby boomers on up of narcissists. Because what we were told as kids was that your feelings are more important. That everyone's going to get a trophy. That self-esteem was the key word these baby boomers had. I'm going to give my kid self-esteem, and it became, instead of just saying, hey, good job to your kid, what it did was every other kid that did better was sort of rubbed down and polished down. Like there was no longer a student of the week in a classroom. Every student got a star because they didn't want to single out the kids that were performing better to give low self-esteem to the other kids that weren't. So there became this moment in history in America where it was more important that our kids didn't feel disrespected than for them to actually learn any sort of skill or get into life and work hard. All that mattered was their feelings. And in the 80s, it got much worse. You have, a bunch of kids raised on therapy and talking about their feelings, and they don't feel like going to work today. And it's like, it's this kind of really spoiled generation, and it's really troubling. Would you agree, Eli?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a general statement, but I guess it pertains to, how the idea that everyone gets a trophy. I do agree.
And it's troubling because here's the thing, while their intention was good, let's give our kids self-esteem. What you've done is you've raised a bunch of kids that don't know how to do shit. So they have no reason for actual self-esteem. Just because you tell your kid they're good at things, it doesn't mean they are. And just because they believe they are doesn't mean it's going to benefit society. It's why we're getting our ass kicked by China every day, and why America's falling down, and why this new movement, I don't want to get too political, but Reaganomics in the 80s, which is saying greed is good, and it's now all of a sudden it's not personal, it's business, and it's okay to fuck over your fellow man because you're making more money. It's all about me, grab, take. And the Democrats and the Republicans have run away with it in the economy. That's why the fucking bubble burst in the economy. I found the reason why everything is shit. It's this baby boomer and generation on down of me first and narcissism, and that it's okay. In the old days, I'm not saying it didn't exist, narcissism, but if somebody was that way, they were usually shunned, or they weren't respected, or they were told, there's all these stories, I can name millions of movies growing up where that was the message, that was the bad guy that would do anything to get ahead. And now that's the good guy. Now weak and really screwed up people are kind of our heroes as long as they make money. Look at the Facebook kids. I interviewed the Winklevoss. They were screwed out of hundreds of millions of dollars by this nerd, and yet this nerd is respected by everybody as if he invented something. He didn't do anything. He literally didn't do anything but steal something, but because he's wealthy, he's respected more. That's a huge change in the way in which we view our fellow Americans. And seriously, looking around, the way things are as shitty as they are today, you really can trace it to that moment, which instead of telling our kids, life is difficult. If you want to get respect, you've got to earn respect. All the things we always heard our parents say, go to trade school, learn a skill, make something of yourself. Those kinds of things are gone. And now what you're hearing is, hey, just because you're you, just in the mere fact that you you eat and take a dump, you're special. And kids are starting to believe that. And just to back it up so you guys don't think this is just me being crazy, a study was conducted by a doctor. His name was Dr. Twenge of San Diego State University. He studied more than 16,000 students who took the Narcissistic Personality Inventory, which is the test to determine NPD, between 1982 and 2006. So he studied them for about 14 years. In 1982, only a third of the students scored above average on the narcissistic test. Today, that number is over 65%. So there is statistical data to back up. And anyone that can look outside can see that obviously all of us nowadays, none of us can make shit. None of us are good at anything. None of us even challenge ourselves. We all want to be celebrities and famous. We all go on YouTube. Look at me, I'm doing a freaking podcast. It's all this I'm special because I'm me thing, and it's kind of creepy. According to the DSM, a pervasive pattern of grandiosity, or NPD, can be determined by 5 of the 7. Check this out. Number 1, if a person has a grandiose sense of self-importance, for example, exaggerates achievements and talents, expects to be recognized as superior without commensurate achievements. That's number 1. You can pretty much name every child and adult, really honestly, under 50, under 60 now, that feels this way. We all feel as if we're special, as if we're marked for something great, and that we don't really feel that we need to do anything great. We don't feel like we need to back it up or make anything. We think it should just be honored. And obviously there isn't enough room on the planet for everybody to be honored and famous. So really, if you want that, if you have that desire, you have to go out and do something, which simply is not happening today. And I know this is probably a depressing hour of radio, but I do think it's really, really important because I see, honestly, children being screwed over generation by generation and they'll never understand the value of hard work. I don't understand it. I I don't think a lot of people do. I don't think they'll understand the value of rising to the occasion or overcoming obstacles. I think what they're seeing now is they just have to complain and say, that's how I feel. And nowadays schools are backing up. Principals, other students, teachers, parents. If a kid says he feels uncomfortable, they'll bring a lawsuit on the kid. Look at the kid that bullied, was getting punched in the face by another kid, defended himself, he got suspended. It's this weird thing which we don't want to tell our kids that the world sucks. So we lie about how the world really is so that they don't feel uncomfortable. And it's really a disservice to your children, because anybody with children knows, and anyone that's ever been a child knows, that when you feel really truly loved by your parent, it's when there's structure, when there is a positive and negative reinforcements to your behavior. When your parent tells you you're special, but then hires some Filipino nanny to take care of you 20 hours a day, it kind of causes a confusion in your head. Or other kids nowadays being constantly told that they're special, but their parents don't really want to spend time with them. Both the mom and dad are working now. There is this sort of schism being created, and it's really, really depressing. Have you killed yourself yet, Eli? Still with me?
No, there's something to say about that. I mean, I don't know if it's in like all areas of the country, but I feel like that takes place in a lot of areas in the big cities for some reason, especially in the upper middle class areas or upper class areas within the country. I don't know why that is.
I think a lot of people want to be friends with their kids. They want their kids to like them more than they want them to respect them.
Right. They want to be.
I mean, I saw one of my followers was talking about how her son wouldn't leave the room. I think it was Capo Stick a long time ago. And I tried to get him to call in, and, I didn't want to psychoanalyze her or the family or say anything too uncomfortable, but, on 50s dad, as I call him, or 50s mom, if their kid wouldn't leave the room, they would have gone in and spanked him on the ass. They would have made him grab a switch up the tree and whipped him on the ass to get out of the room. And that's good parenting. I don't know what happened.
Like nowadays, like whipping your child, especially in public, if they did something wrong, you think they would get in trouble for that nowadays?
Well, they definitely would get in trouble for it, and it's not just that. A lot of parents don't do it because they think, well, it's mean and it's just reinforcing it, a stereotype of violence, and they're going to become violent. The studies show violence becomes violent, so I'm going to talk to them about their feelings. Well, kids can't reason their feelings. So when a kid comes home at after school and is telling you he doesn't like his math teacher because she's a stoopy head, you're supposed to say, well, it doesn't matter. She's your teacher. Nowadays, I go, okay, the parent will literally say, I'm going to go talk to the teacher and principal. There's way too much value being placed on children's opinions. That's what I'm getting at. And what's sad is children grow up. So now these little kids that are basically being taught to be narcissists are now my age and older. They're getting into political office. They're running companies. They're becoming, the kids that are running the world. They don't value anything but themselves and their feelings. Do you know how scary? I mean, just take a second to think about that. A nation run by a bunch of narcissists, like literal narcissists. As I said at the show, I'm not saying using the word loosely. I'm talking about diagnoses of narcissism, like literal crazy Patrick Bateman in American Psycho, sociopathic narcissism. We have a generation and nation of these people, myself included. It's actually a terrifying futuristic vision when you really think about it. And that's what I want to get at. We actually have a caller for the first fucking time. I'm going to go right to them. Caller, are you there? Hello? Just hung himself. Literally swinging from the rafters for my awesome doomsday proclamations. This is a tough show.
Yeah.
I think my mother calling in at the beginning didn't start it off on the right foot, but I want people to know.
Yeah, I'm still kind of like.
Yeah, I kind of feel.
I was a little bit like thrown off by that.
Again, I'm speaking clearly. It's not anything to be freaked out by. I know a lot of people that don't know my mother very well. They hear that and they think that it's way worse than it is. That's her normal. When she's upset, that's her normal speaking voice. I grew up around that. So you guys don't see it very much, and it must seem so terrifying. But that's that's how she deals with things. That's her normal way to deal with something she disagrees. Now, you're all thinking, well, if my parents disagreed with me, they would say, son, I disagree with you. But that's not the way in which she handles things. So please don't get totally freaked out or think that, she's gone crazy or she's on drugs. That's literally how she responds and deals with things. That's her normal speaking voice when she's a little bit upset. So I want to clear that out. I do feel like the fucking show is ruined because she came in here and took a big crap on it. And I was all prepared.
Well, it's not like a particularly good feeling when, like, your best friend's mother calls you names and then claims that, it's just like it's just strange for me to.
Well, again, I'm not 12. I'm not 13. So I'm 33. It's an unfortunate situation because. It's an unfortunate situation. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
I think most people that listen to my show don't really get upset by anything that I say. I think most people know that I'm practical, and I have interesting things to say, and I value other people. I don't think they understand why my mother gets so upset at me. I think that's what it is. But that was not her really that upset. So please, everyone, take a deep breath. That is just, like how your mother would say, "Oh, how was your day, dear?" That's what I get. That's how it is.
That's just her way of, okay. That's
her normal way. And most of it was a joke. Like when she starts calling you gay, that's her being funny. So I've had 33 years with that woman, so I can speak Roseanne. There was really, and I'm not really fired. That was all. It's just basically venting like a child. There's no reason to really panic by anybody. She is obviously upset by something. I think she's upset by the 2 vagina phone call that we posted on YouTube. But again, that was 3 weeks ago, and since then we haven't done it. And I'm fighting the urge right now not to go into a big feminism debate because I said I wouldn't do it. But how often do you get Roseanne Barr to call on your show and bring up the feminism debate? And it's very difficult for me not to go there. This is probably the hardest fucking show I've ever had to do, if we're going to be honest with each other. This is terrible. I feel a dying death. I feel the ship is sinking because I spent literally a week preparing for this thing, and it's every time I bring it up or talk about the narcissism debate, it just sounds like I'm deflecting or not facing what happened, and it's just no one's going to be able to pay attention to it. It's basically ruined. Which is awesome.
Which is like, I want to help you as much as I can, and I allocate as much time to do what I can, to help you feel comfortable, whatever, on the air, or do well on the air, or help produce this show. But, I don't need to put up with that shit. You know what I mean? Like, why should I be, like, what the hell did I do? And it's hard for me to comprehend, just for me, in my perspective, like, what is it, what is this all about? Why am I being called out upon and called names that, am I supposed to take that lightly? I just don't understand.
No,
I'm really angry, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I can tell.
Because I am a very fair person, and if you and I have a disagreement or different opinions on something, we actually listen to each other and try to comprehend what the other perspective is, just in case there's our opinion's wrong. But
that's how adults discuss things, though. You have to understand, not adults. That's how well-reasoned adults are. We say things, and then we allow other people to have a differing opinion, and then we talk it out, and there's no need to get personal. But, my mother doesn't deal with it that way, and also I do think a large portion of that was humorous. I was laughing. But, yeah, if you're upset,
why is that funny? Can you tell me why that's funny?
Well, because I know when she's saying, you're gay and you guys should, get married and you don't know anything about women and you're rich. It's very funny. It's like you got to think of it as like a comedic act. I do the same thing to the flip side, which I think a lot of people are upset about me even blaming the baby boomers for anything, because these people fancy themselves hippies that change the world, and they can't accept any responsibility for how poorly they fucked a lot of things up. That's probably why she's mad. They're probably all tweeting her, and they're all getting their heads in a fizzy and pissed off, because when you're a well-reasoned adult, you want to have these discussions. But at the same time, when somebody gets upset or says something stupid, I jump on them, and I even do personal insults, and I think it's kind of funny. Maybe it's not funny to you. I mean, if you're upset, you're upset, but and I'm not saying it's justified.
It's funny to me when people like actually bring up what it is that's bothering them or what it is that they're making fun of, instead of like jumping in and completely blindsiding and calling people names and saying shit about my father. You know, it's like, who the fuck are you? Sorry.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, this is the way I've lived my life, and why people always ask me, how come you're not a serial killer? Moments like this, I take a breath and I go, I know my mother, and I know what she's trying to do is she's trying to take basically a personal attack so that you get upset. Because once you're personally upset, you will lose all ability to reason. It's a standard move. It's like let's use the term fighting. You know, I do a lot of martial arts. You know, it's two guys standing. You're trying to teach somebody. You can stand there and stand on guard and exchange blow for blow, or you can literally spit in their face, kick them in the nuts, and call them a racist name, and then the fight's on. Well, at that point, they're going to be so upset they're not going to be able to think clearly, and you should be able to systematically break them down. It's an old technique, and why I find it funny that my mother does it is because my mother's actually very bright. She is more than capable of having a well-reasoned adult conversation. She doesn't need to do that.
What's the motivation behind the manipulation technique? What's the motivation?
It's very simple. It's a debate tactic. It's not a mature one, but it's like, hey, you're a fucking idiot. You're gay. Now let's talk. And it's what it does is it puts you on the defense. It's like a jab in boxing. It's a punch to your face. Now your hands go up to block your face. You're not throwing a punch back. It's putting someone on the defense, which is, to me, very amusing because there was never any punch to her. It's literally what happened is I went in there and I didn't even talk to my mom. I said, hey, everybody, I think it's interesting that we've raised a nation of idiots, backing it up with, scientific data, and she gets upset and starts calling me gay. To me, objective, and this is what started this conversation when I said why I turned out okay. I can do that. I can separate the personal and remain objective. It's not easy. Yeah. Believe me, I couldn't always do it, and I still have trouble from time to time. But at that very moment, I look at that and go, okay, somebody is very upset by something I said, which is why the first thing I said to my mother when she was going off was, what specifically are you upset about? I was already trying to have a debate and a rational discussion. I'm fine if she wants to call me names. I didn't get mad. I didn't get defensive. I just said, what do you specifically want to talk about? Because then at that point, we could have had an adult, reasonable discussion. Unfortunately, I couldn't get a word in, so then I had to mute her so that I could ask her a question, because I couldn't do that on the last show, and she hung up on me. Now, I view that in the terms of the debate. This is not a knock on my mother. I love my mother. Again, I'm not going to get in debate with her, but just objectively looking at a debate, if this were a debate team in high school and one of the teams went up and said, I proclaim that baby boomers did this, and the other debate team said, you're a stupid gay head, and threw something at him and left the room, you would declare the winner of the debate the one who did not do that. So I look at it as kind of funny. It's like you shot yourself in the foot. You didn't even meet me halfway. You didn't have a rational discussion. You just made personal insults to me and my friend, and you hung up, and you screamed. So I won. Yeah. That's why I'm not mad. Now, I wasn't looking out to win, but when somebody gets personal and attacks you, that's a sure sign that you are on to something. So now I know the baby boomer thing, if that's what she's upset about. I know some other callers looking at Twitter are upset about it. I know I'm onto something. See, that tells me when I see people getting upset and defensive, that tells me I'm onto it. If I came up in here and said raccoons are taking over the world tomorrow and we'll all have to, eat garbage and learn to speak raccoon, everyone would just, would pass through their ear. They think I'm crazy. But obviously what I'm saying is making people upset. When something makes you upset and defensive, it's touching a nerve. Otherwise it wouldn't bother you. Like Eli, if I told you, you're a stupid black person, do you get upset?
You told me that?
If I said, Eli, you're a stupid black person, would you get mad?
Well, if I was black.
Exactly. No, that's my point. You wouldn't. You'd be like, well, whatever, that doesn't make sense. But if I said you are a stupid, Zionistic Jew, you'd probably get a little bit more upset, right?
I'd actually find that kind of funny, though.
Well, I'm just for the sake of the
Just for the sake of conversation, yes, I guess so, sure.
My point is, so if people are getting upset by what I said, it tells me Not necessarily that I'm right, but that I'm onto something. And for people to look at their kids, this generation of morons, these narcissistic morons that go on YouTube and think every poop they take is interesting, and all they care about is being on Facebook and Twitter so that they can gain a following because it's some limited, celebrity, because they don't care about getting a good education. They don't care about learning how to make something. They just want to be famous because they're all narcissistic. Again, myself included. I'm not denying it. No one wants to hear that necessarily, because everyone, when you talk about people's kids, you have to say your kid is perfect and special in every way,
right,
or they're going to come out fighting. And I'm not saying that these kids, it's their fault or that it isn't correctable. It's very simply, very easily correctable. It just requires that you tell your kids how the real world is and you prepare them for the real world with real consequences. But the problem is these parents that are teaching kids nowadays, they didn't have that from their parents, so they have no concept. It's literally, let's all just feel things together. And what we feel is true. And to me, that is irrational and crazy. So, again, on behalf of my mother, I want to apologize to you, Eli. Please know it's not a personal attack on you and your father. It is her trying to, she's upset. She's trying to rile us up. From the sake of a radio show, are you kidding me? You couldn't ask for a fucking better radio promo.
That's true.
I mean, God, that's the other side. It's like, I just got to cut that 30 seconds out, and I can sell this show. I got Roseanne Barr calling me gay. Who gets that?
Come to think of it, it's really a good move on her part. She's helping you out.
That in some misguided way, I would like to believe that. It may not be true, but I have a feeling that is, and I'm going to go with that because I did detect a lot of humor in what you were saying, just because, like I said, I know her very well. And I understand that there is a little bit of that. But at the same time, last time I thought that was my last show on AM radio, and I thought, wow, this is great. She's really getting my numbers up, and then I never did the show again. So who knows?
It's kind of like pro wrestling.
But I do want to say I have a very special caller right now. I think I've talked enough with my crappy broken piece show that I'm trying to collect. But I have Brody on the line. Brody, are you there?
Yeah.
Yep, I'm right here.
How are you, man? I've never talked to you.
I'm great. I don't have a question, but I just wanted to make a comment.
Go ahead.
Roseanne is a lunatic, and she is a testament to why women should not be politicians and should not hold any political office whatsoever.
And why do you say that?
Well, you just heard her a couple minutes ago on your radio show. And also, I just wanted to make a comment about the narcissism in children and other people nowadays. I totally agree with you, because myself included, and when I'm in class, I would sooner rather to go on Facebook, get a following on my Twitter, talk to celebrities, than learn biology, all that other stupid crap.
And what is it? You want to be famous?
Yep.
And why? I mean, have you ever really thought about it?
Not famous, so to speak, just a journalist or an interviewer, something along those lines. I just find that more interesting than other careers, I guess. And
I'm not, again, to be clear, Brody, please stay on. I'm not saying that, having drive or wanting to be successful is a bad thing. I know that everyone's going to twist what I'm saying. I find, again, 50s dad or the older generations, there was a point where, everybody wants to be beloved and popular. I mean, that's very human. But there was a point where many people back in the old days, we'll say 30s, 40s, whatever, knew that they had to get a job and they had to get a house and they had to raise their wife, raise their kids along with their wife, and they had to have health care, and then that became the American dream through the 50s, the 1.2 kids and the 2 cars and blah 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 and the TV set and so on and so forth. So it's not a bad thing to want, even if it's material. It's not bad. The point is, I see a lot of kids nowadays where they almost feel deep down that it's not necessarily something to even strive for. It's something they deserve. It's something they feel is owed to them.
Or entitled.
Yeah, I mean, the other word for, again, this is not something I'm making up. I'm looking, I can tweet articles, but they do call this the entitlement generation. Number 5 in the DSM right here has a sense of entitlement, i.e. unreasonable expectations of especially favorable treatment or automatic compliance with his or her expectations. This is NPD, narcissistic personality disorder to the max. These kids nowadays that are on YouTube and Facebook and, blog talk radio like me, unscripted radio, all us fucked up kids, we do feel that we are special. We really do. And we might not admit it. I'll admit it. I don't even think I'm normal or average. I may very well be normal and average. I don't feel that way. I feel as if I'm special. I feel like fucking Neo from the Matrix. Like I'm here to fucking save the planet from evil machines. I feel that fucking absurdly insane, if I'm going to be really honest. I think everybody, if they were honest, would admit to it. That's why those movies are successful, like The Matrix or Star Wars, when somebody's nowhere and all of a sudden they find out they're the one or a mythical princess. That's why it touches us, because we all deep down want to be special. The problem is we're not. Many of us simply are not. In fact, the term special means you're different than most. So if there are actually special people, and not in a retarded sense, but special in, empowering sense, it's going to be very few and far between. We can't all be special. We can't all be Neo to save the world. It's not possible. Otherwise, then you're not special. If everybody's special, then nobody is special. And to be told this by our parents really fucked us up. It really did. And Brody, I know this kid on Twitter, I think he's awesome. I know he gets a lot of shit. I know, sometimes he deserves it. But I think he's a good kid. I do. Are you still there, Brody?
Yep, I'm still here.
I think you're a reasonably bright kid, and I think a lot of it is just you're putting on an act. I think if I got in touch with the real you here on this phone, I think you would admit it, like you already did. There is this certain entitlement. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but you do feel as if you're destined for greatness, yes? I mean, be honest.
Yeah, sure, I guess.
Okay. And were you told from the time you were brought up that that is the case by your mother? I know your father wasn't around. Were you told that you were special, or
yes. Yeah, it's quite annoying, but yes.
Now, I'm not saying you're not, because I actually can read between the lines. I don't talk to everybody on Twitter as much as I talk to you. I do actually think you are very bright, and I would go as far as to say, hopefully I'm using the term right, precocious. You may very well be different. You may very well be. I'm not saying you aren't, but you will never know at this current rate. You will never know if you truly are, because you're not in the place to even challenge it. The world is going to open its doors for you. You walk in and say, I'm special. Everybody has to proclaim that you are nowadays. So how are you ever going to overcome anything? How are you going to do a friggin' blog talk radio show when your crazy mother comes in and calls and challenges you and basically destroys your show? Are you going to continue for the next 40 minutes stumbling like a moron? You don't know. I mean, these are things that make us special. These are things that make us better. It's in the moment how in which you deal. I think being told that your self-esteem is more important than reality is really dangerous, because, Brody, you may be bright, like I said, but let's say I'm talking to some other kid who feels the same as you, who's just an average, nerd, just a nobody. And here he is thinking, I'm going to be special, I'm going to be famous. He's got Facebook followers and Twitter followers, and he has nothing. He's not interesting in the least. What happens to that kid when he's 25 and he's out there doing his, show, and it's terrible? You think he's going to sit there and go, what do I need to do to make this show better? No. He's going to sit there and go to his mom or his dad or his teachers or anyone that supported the bullshit and say, nobody gets my show. They don't understand my genius. And then all their parents and friends and teachers are going to go, yeah, you're just too special for them. And then they're never going to get better. They're not going to work a comedic bit. They're not going to work on their timing. My mother, who in my opinion still is one of the most brilliant stand-up comedians of all time, I was there as a kid. Okay? When she decided to do stand-up, she was terrible. Her first 2-3 years, she would go in there and basically do what she did on this radio show, from all accounts and stories I've heard. She would go in there and bitch about how men are stupid. And everybody kind of pulled her aside and said, look, you can't just come up here and make fun of men the whole time. She got help with writers, and then she started to work the craft. She worked it day in and day out. She worked her ass off. I can tell you that. I was there. I was there for the sitcom years. My mom worked her ass off. I will never, ever say anything different. That woman was working 80, 90-hour work weeks through pretty much my whole, upbringing. And she worked the craft. She got better. She worked jokes. She bombed. She went up there and fucking bombed time after time and adjusted accordingly. Nobody told her she was special. Nobody said you're destined for greatness. Most told her she was fat and stupid and too loud. But she worked her ass off and she crafted, and then bam, she became one of the greatest ever. That is what's being lost. That's what I have a problem with. There aren't people telling you to get better. There aren't people telling you that you're not going to have the fucking world as a silver platter. We're all in this lie together. And here's a kid like Brody, who, like I said, is a good, bright kid. He might never get the chance to get better. You might never, ever think you need to. You know what I mean? And you can be great. In fact, I would go as far as to say I'm probably the first person that's ever said it to you like this. Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And are you dejected? Are your feelings hurt? Is your self-esteem destroyed? Or are you
not
thinking,
at all. No.
You're thinking, I got to get better, right?
Yeah.
If I want to be good, I have to work on my craft. Good. You know what? Right now, you're a step ahead of everybody else your age, and probably people a few years older than you. Keep that. You got to get better. I mean, I suck at radio. I'll be honest with you. I'm terrible. I listen back to these shows. I listen to him maybe once, and then I call Eli, that poor fucker. This is why he's my friend, and I feel so sorry for him. I'll call him and basically bitch for hours about how much I suck. I'm never going to do it, and he has to go through this horrible fucking venting, gut-wrenching bullshit thing that I put on the poor guy, and my wife too. They all can't stand me in between Saturdays. I suck, and I know it, but I want to get better, you know? And because of that, because I'm willing to put in the work, I believe that I'm going to get better. I saw my mother do it. So, you know, Brody, keep it up. You know, you and I had a private DM chain one time on Twitter where you asked me help to write a joke, and I thought that was one of the coolest things ever, especially for a 15-year-old. You were like, how do I say this better? You didn't call me up, or you didn't DM me and say, hey, this is funny. You asked me what I thought, and I gave you advice, and you took it, as far as I know. That was cool. That was cool as shit. So, you know, you may be, you know, you may suck. You may be average. Your YouTube movies may just be horrible to watch. I don't know. I haven't done it yet. Sorry, I said I would, but I didn't yet. And you may be nothing. It's possible. But by all accounts and purposes, by everything that I can see, I have a hard time believing that. So go get to work, Brody.
Okay, thanks.
All right, don't kill yourself. For my hard truth, because you're a step ahead now. You have anything you want to say? Did you kill yourself? I think he's gone.
Yeah, he's gone.
Oh, but he's got, you know what he's doing right now? He's getting to work. I guarantee you he's getting to work right now, because that kid, when the jokes he sent me, he actually wants to write jokes. He wants to host a show. I mean, he sent you some, too, where he's talking about, you know, he's in talks with people to do stuff. I mean, he really wants it. And he is funny from time to time. I know my mother blocked him. I know my sisters have blocked him and unblocked him. I know he can be a little bit of a douche from time to time. But he's going to be good. I have a good feeling about him. What do you say about that?
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I followed him and listened to some of his statements, and the fact that he was able to get under your mother's skin and your sister's skin, it sounds like, even I don't know why. I guess you mentioned.
Well, he can be a little bit, like I've seen him. I mean, the big thing again. I don't want to do the feminism thing again, but that didn't just go on this radio show. That was on Twitter, and he was very pro-feminist. He fought with me for days. You know, he was all there with the girls saying, "Oh, Jake's a big stupid," and he started posting these things. And then he, to his credit, again, why I think Brody's got a chance, he started to actually read what people were saying, and then he started to form his own opinion.
That's wisdom. I mean, that's someone who people who are bright usually have that characteristic about them. If they have an ability to listen to someone else's opinion and be open to it, and then contemplate whether or not it makes sense to them logically, that's someone who's going to make it in this life. You know what I mean? Because they have wisdom. That's how you increase wisdom is by exposing yourself to as many people and new ideas, and being able to kind of contemplate whether or not it's something that's rational, I guess.
Well, and again, you know, I always go to the big picture, but you know, I'm here on the earth because I'm special and I'm Neo and shit to save the world. okay? And my purpose on this planet is to get people to have the fucking simple ability to have a conversation. That's what I feel I was put on this earth to do, because it's very difficult, as you can see. Getting people to state something, to back up their opinion, to have a debate, to not let it get emotional, to not be butthurt or have your bias or feel as though you're being judged or threatened and all that crazy shit, just to be able to be objective and have a reasonable conversation is an art. I thought everybody had it. They clearly don't.
They clearly
don't.
In fact,
and it takes work. But, every show I've ever done, even though they all suck, as you'll hear about for the next 4 hours when I call you after the show, is to get that message out. It's a very simple message. Put your bias and baggage aside and shut the fuck up and have a conversation in that order, because you can't have a conversation when you shut the fuck up. Just do it. It's not that hard. So anyway, Brody started to turn. And instead of any of those women in that debate saying to Brody, well, this is your opinion, you have your own opinion, they started acting as if I was manipulating him, as if I had gotten his brain and turned it around. So they didn't even, this is the next thing about this great narcissistic generation. Here's this poor kid, Brody, who's trying to have a conversation, trying to be funny, trying to get seen by Roseanne, who he's a fan of, and, he's following her kids, and he wants to be famous. He's doing this. He gets in a conversation, and when he starts to make up his own mind, when he starts to stand his foot down and go, you know what, forget the grain. I'm actually starting to think Jake has a point. Instead of anyone valuing his opinion, they basically said, oh, you're being brainwashed by a much smarter man. So that's basically, fuck you. That's what they're saying to him. Fuck you, your opinion doesn't matter. Now, I'm not saying he was right or that I was even right. I'm not even in that discussion. All I'm saying is, as soon as he started to see that I was making sense in his opinion, no one then talked to him about his opinion. They basically brushed it off in a very emasculating way. I saw it. And that's a huge, huge problem. I mean, if people can't share their opinion without it being respected, how are we going to improve as a human race? How am I going to save the goddamn world? I mean, that's what this show's about. How is the cult of Jake going to save the world when a 15-year-old boy can't even express his own opinion on fucking Twitter without it being dismissed instantaneously? So we all have to do a better job. This isn't me coming on here in a pulpit saying, I'm better than you. If you listen to me, I am the first to admit fault. I'm the first to say that I have things to work on, that I need to get better. I don't always hear that back. And I think some people don't understand how hard that is for somebody to say, to be honest about your shortcomings. That's not something I do lightly, and it's not something I do to manipulate either. It's not something I do as a tool so that I can say, hey, I'm like you, but I'm really not. I mean it. I am a terrible communicator, not at all where I want to be, and I have to work at it. But, if I'm terrible, most of these people I've been debating with are ridiculously stupid, because I'm having to set these terms and trying to get these debates. My own mother can't even have the discussion without me without getting personal. I never went personal. Even when I'm mad at her, I don't go personal. I just sat here and talked about how brilliant she is and how hard she worked. That was my response to being told I'm gay. Right. So we all have to get better. It requires each and every one of us to stand up, be proud of our opinions, and back them up. And you know what? Here's the secret. Really question whether or not your opinion is your own. And the way you do that is if somebody asks you to back up your opinion, and you can't. If you can't find a reason or an example, it's probably not your opinion. You're probably just repeating what you heard. Mm-hmm. If someone asks me why I feel this way about feminism or narcissism, I'll tell you why. I've already said it's because of the world and kids these days, and I've already gotten to my point. Now, no one that I've ever debated with on any of these topics has ever given me the courtesy and decency back. They basically, all they can do is a personal insult. And I'm not saying I'm right. If somebody calls in and says, hey, Jake, you're wrong here because according to this study, and narcissism is actually not this, I'm a doctor on it, you'll see me go, okay, I was wrong. I'm not looking to do a victory dance. I don't want to be right about this. In fact, it's really depressing that me, some really kind of average 33-year-old doucher who sleeps with a T-shirt around his crotch, who's barely functional and has terrible hygiene, I'm basically a moron by all accounts and purposes. If I'm seeing this, if I'm able to back it up and nobody can beat me in it, nobody can show me the other side, then we're really fucked. If I'm the smartest person in the room, we are fucked. Okay? That's the sad truth.
And is it me, or is it like people are becoming more and more offended at the most ridiculous stuff? Like they become so reactionary to certain uncomfortable facts, if it is.
I mean, I wanted to get to it today. That was what my show was going to be, because a lot of the stuff I uncovered in these studies about narcissistic personality disorder was its effect on civilization. And that was pretty much it, was that now people they're misusing words. Like this article I have here, they're saying the term, one of the effects of this narcissistic movement is the term such as genius is being overused. To the point where if you say somebody's normal, it's an insult. So now everybody's so hypersensitive the other way. I mean, talk about politically correct movement. That was just the start of it. This self-esteem movement has now made us actually have less self-esteem about ourselves. That's the funny thing nobody sees. You can't go up to somebody and call them anything that they don't approve of, unless, if it makes them feel icky, it's bad. Well, then you have to start getting nicer and nicer just to meet at the middle ground. Like you can't tell somebody their kid is kind of smart. That's an insult now. You have to tell them their kid's a genius. When they come to you and go, my baby, he's 2 years old and he farted and he said, Daddy, isn't he a genius? You can't go, well, most 2-year-olds fart and say Daddy. You can't do that. Now you're insulting their kid. Now you have to go, oh, my God, your kid should have its own talk show. It's so brilliant. Dr. Phil and your baby together. That's what you have to do. So we have a whole generation of people that are literally lying to each other. Everything's out of control. And now we're all oversensitive to the fact where I can't even go on a freaking radio show and express my opinion without my own mother calling me names. That's what this world has come to. That's what I'm railing against. I should be able to come on here and say anything and have people meet me halfway and have a logical and reasonable debate. That's all I've ever asked for. Right. Why can't that happen? Why does everyone have to be so over-the-top sensitive? And your feelings are so important to have to be valued, or I'm going to sue you. I mean, it's such a litigious society now. I mean, no matter where you look, the world is falling apart, and I am right. I am right. I am cutting through it right now. I'm speaking to all of you listening. It's really bad. Tell your kids to work. Tell them they're not special, even if they are. And yourself, their feelings don't matter, in the grand scheme of things. Obviously, if they come home and they tell you you're upset, listen to them. Don't be cold 50s dad where you say, shut up, I'm drinking scotch and hit them. I'm not saying it was that much better back then either, but it was a little bit more reasonable. Now you can listen to your kids. You can be emotional. You can have feelings talks. There's a time and a place for them. I do it all the time. But at the end of the day, the world is not going to adjust to your crazy. So all of you people out there, you psychotic people that are upset with anything I said, I'm reality talking to you right now. You want me to change. You want me and my cronies who believe in the real world to adjust to you and to make all sorts of advances and changes so that you're comfortable and you don't feel your feelings are hurt. Fuck off. Seriously, fuck off. Who do you think you are, you narcissistic fucks? I'm not going to change for you. This is the world. You need to adjust to the world, not the other way around. That's narcissistic personality disorder. That's what the campaign my mother should be running on. Someone that wants to talk about changing the world, that's how you change the world. All this other stuff is just details. Until you get people to admit that they are fucking out of their goddamn minds and to even try to get better, until you can get them there, nothing's going to change. You're still going to get fucked over by your government. You're still going to pay way too much taxes. You're still not going to have a say in anything. You're going to be screwed. Whatever you want to talk about, relationships, money, whatever, you're going to get fucked continually until you can realize this very thing that I'm telling you, which is shut the fuck up and adjust to reality. Don't ask us to adjust to you, you selfish pricks. On that note,
Bravo.
Thank you. I was channeling God there. That was actually God channeling through me. I am a supreme narcissist. I admit it. That was God saying, you need to get through all these liberal, feminazi, baby boomers, crazy weakling, Republican, psychotic Zionist fucks, everybody right and left that's out of their fucking mind. You need to preach it to them, Jake.
Yeah.
And I did, because that was not me speaking. I see I have 30 seconds left.
I think we're done.
I think we are done. Oh, 30 minutes. Oh, I see. He gave me extra. Okay, we got 40 seconds. Wow. That was the single hardest hour of radio that I've ever done, and I'm also very proud of it. I don't give a fuck what anyone says.
Yeah, you should be. you covered a really important topic, and people need to hear a lot of things you mentioned. I mean, it's going to help people, and they just have to hear the truth sometimes, even though they don't like to hear it.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you're, the most important person on the planet and here to save the world. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. I'm sure Twitter's going to be phenomenal. I can't wait. And Eli, I'll be calling you the next 4 hours talking about how much I suck. You'll have to pick me right back up. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mike and Jeff and Mother. Thank you so much for that glorious phone call. And Brody, you are a special kid. You really are. And don't let anyone tell you anything different. But also don't let them tell you are. And don't start believing it. Okay? Thanks, everybody.